Today we're looking at the third and final little fruity whiskey from Two Stacks. We're looking at the Blackberry Brandy Fruit Drop Irish Whiskey. I'm Matt, I'm the whiskey nerd, and let me get this whiskey into the glass before I tell you a little bit more about it. Like I said, this is the Fruit Drops Blackberry Brandy Cask finished whiskey from Two Stacks Irish Whiskey. If you're not familiar with Two Stacks, I've reviewed plenty of their whiskies on the channel, including the first two of this series, the Apple Brandy and the Apricot Brandy. You can check out links down below in the description, which you can watch afterwards. This is the third and final of that series, so I'll give you a quick run through of Two Stacks. They are bottlers, blenders and bottlers, and what they do is they source whiskey from other distilleries and they do something a bit special, a bit different and a bit unique with it. In this case, what they've done is they've taken whiskey from the Great Northern Distillery, 5 different types of whiskey, and blended it together to make what they call kind of their core or their signature blend. And then they finished it in a Blackberry Brandy cask. Now, what is the components of that core blend? Well, it's on the bottle. They are very passionate about transparent, and I do really appreciate that. This whiskey is made up of 40% single grain whiskey aged in bourbon casks, 40% single grain whiskey aged in virgin oak casks, 8% single pot still whiskey aged in Oloroso Sherry cask, 10% double distilled malt whiskey aged in bourbon casks, and 2% triple distilled peated malt aged in bourbon casks. And they were all finished in a Blackberry Brandy cask. Now, Two Stacks, like I said, they had that core blend, and what they did was they released their core blend, very good, and then they released a cask strength version of that at like 63%, something quite high like that. But then they kind of took that cask strength and they put it in a few different casks. So they released special edition releases with like 200 to 250 bottles of like Caribbean rum cask and Apple Brandy, Apricot, Cherry Brandy, Blackberry, Raspberry, lots of different kind of brandies. They put a lot of finishes in, and I think this is like an evolution of that, where they took casks that they thought were good and they released it as like a 3-part series of this kind of bigger release. So it is actually not a super limited edition release. Like, this should be pretty widely available, maybe not forever, but it should be at least widely available now. You should be able to get it from most online stores and from themselves. And they actually put it out in cans. So they, I'll put pictures of the cans up there. They put out in the Apple Brandy, the Apricot Brandy and the Blackberry Brandy whiskey in cans. So if you're not maybe sure about it, you can buy yourself a little can of it, try it out and see if you like it, which I think is always a positive move for consumers, especially if it's something a bit experimental, a bit weird, a bit different. You can then try out a small version of the whiskey without breaking the bank, without buying a full-size bottle of something you might not really like. You can then try it out and go, cool, I like that, or cool, you don't like it, but either way you've tried it. The whiskey also comes in at 50% alcohol by volume, or 100 proof in American numbers, which means it's got a nice bit of presence. It's not down at 40%, but it's also not super high like cask strength, where it's almost like a challenge to drink it. It's actually, for me, a kind of a nice drinkable percentage, that kind of 50% note. So I think that's all there is to say about it. Let's go in for the nose on the Fruit Drops Blackberry Brandy cask. Cheers. It's quite jammy up front. Like, you get this big hit of blackberries, but if you've tried blackberries, you know they can be a bit tart, not bitter, not like lemon kind of zesty, but kind of tart, kind of, tart. And you don't get that here. Instead, you just get blackberries. You get like white sugar, you get a lot of sweetness, almost like it's been cooked down. And for me, like, immediately, it reminds me almost like of a pie filling, where you get that, like, it's been cooked, it's got the sugar started to caramelize, you got like the sweet grains of like the pie, like it's been cooked. You get that kind of note coming through, but very, very jammy. Like, for me, the blackberry note is definitely on top of the whiskey. Like, there's a bit of whiskey in there, like it's a bit softer. I think that blackberry jam is a bit rounded, a bit like, I don't know how to say it, like it just kind of surrounded the whiskey. It become very Blackberry Brandy with whiskey, as opposed to Blackberry Brandy and whiskey on an equal footing, if that makes sense. There's actually a little touch of like apple, or like orchard fruits, that kind of note coming through, like a little bit of like that almost green apple note coming through, and a little hint of like earthiness. I wouldn't go as far as to say full smoke, like, because there is a little bit of peated in here. I wouldn't say that far, but there's a little bit of like something deeper in there. So let's go in for the palate on this whiskey and see if I can find that deeper note. Cheers. Much spicier, much oakier on the palate. and much jammier. Like it's like on the palate, everything has just been turned up to 11. Like everything is there. And the more it sat in my palate, the more that jammy, the blackberry note took over. Like immediately up front, I got, oh, there's some spice from a whiskey. Oh, there's a bit of like oak spice. There's a bit of a hit there. And then the blackberry kind of took over. You get this rush of sweetness with, again, like you've just taken almost a spoon of blackberry jam, popped it in your mouth and like, okay, there, that's what I can taste. Like it kind of spreads out over your palate. I will say the ABV is a bit present. Like I can feel that tingle on my tongue a little bit more. Like it's definitely there, but that sweetness is definitely like balancing out a little bit, if that makes sense. There wasn't like a huge amount going on. I mean, obviously it is a Blackberry Brandy cask. They want you to taste the blackberries. I wasn't getting a huge amount, so I'm gonna go in again for the second sip and just gonna see what else I can find behind that initial hit of oak, of spice, of blackberry. Cheers. Second sip around, I let it sit for a bit, and I got a little bit of those orchard fruits again, like the stewed apple, cooked down apple, that kind of flavor did come through on the palate. I got a little waft of smoke, a little bit of that coming through, but really, it's blackberry. It is kind of all blackberry all the time. Like if you are going into this thinking, oh, you're gonna get a whiskey that maybe has some, I don't know, like port notes, or maybe has some like dark chocolate, you're not gonna get that. You're gonna be getting blackberry. So I'm gonna go in again, this time focus on the finish and see what else I can find. Cheers. Surprise, surprise, on the finish, take a breath. What do I taste? It's blackberry. This is Blackberry City. Now, that's not really a problem. Again, like I said, this is a blackberry whiskey, or Blackberry Brandy cask finished whiskey. So that's what you're expecting. And on the finish, I get that sweetness. Again, like I said, like I took a spoonful of blackberry jam, popped it in my mouth, and that's what I'm tasting. Because I'm getting that ABV tingle. I feel it on my tongue, the little bit of alcohol presence there. And then on the finish, now, after a couple of breaths, the whiskey's kind of coming back up to the fore, or at least the blackberry is sinking down. So I'm getting a little bit more of like the brown sugar, a little bit of that oak spice, a little bit of like, it's almost actually kind of almost like a black pepper note. Like I got the tingle of the ABV, a bit of spicy notes, a bit of oaky notes, and that kind of reminds me a little bit of like black pepper, where I get a little bit of spice that is maybe hidden by that burst of sweetness, but then as the sweetness fades, you get that spice coming back. Before I give my final thoughts on this whiskey, if you're new here, scroll down, hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button. I put out whiskey reviews like this every Wednesday, and like I said, I have the other 2 whiskeys in this series reviewed already, so you can check them out whenever you want. And I put out cocktail recipes every Friday featuring whiskey, and I will have a cocktail recipe featuring this whiskey this Friday, so if you want to see that, make sure you hit subscribe, and while you're down there, leave me a comment and say if there's any whiskey you think I should review in the future. But now, my final thoughts on this whiskey. It's fun. It's probably the most fruity of the 3 whiskeys. Like the apple is quite fruity, but it's there. The apricot is quite nicely fruity as well. This one here, very fruity. It is very jammy, it's very sticky, it's very sweet and sugary. To me, it's probably my least favorite of the 3, but it's not a bad whiskey. It's not like an unenjoyable whiskey. It's just, I thought the apricot, a little bit more balanced, gave me a little bit more of what I was hoping for. This here, it's very jammy. And again, like I said, if you're going into this whiskey looking for a blackberry whiskey, you're gonna find it, because that's kind of what you're gonna get here. I don't think these 3 whiskeys are going to win awards. I don't think they're gonna win the judges over at international competitions. I do think though they are quite fun. As you can see, I've drunk a fair bit of this whiskey because it's fun. Myself and my wife, we poured out a few glasses of it and said, yeah, let's enjoy this. And then we were watching a movie, we said, let's have another couple of glasses. It's nice, it's fun, it's a bit fruity, it's a bit different as well. That's one thing I like about Two Stacks. They do different things, so it's easier to kind of enjoy fun, fruity whiskeys from Two Stacks like that. And like I said, if you're unsure about it, if you're maybe not too sure about if you want to buy a full-size bottle of whiskey that is kind of one note, it's a fun note, but it is only pretty much one note, you can buy those cans, those 100ml cans. Check it out yourself. If you don't like it, at least you tried it. If you do like it, you can then get yourself a full-size bottle. But for me, like I said, it's a fun little whiskey. It's very easy to enjoy, so I am going to keep on enjoying it. And I'll see you next time. Slàinte.